The really exciting thing about DC FanDome is that we got confirmation not only on Warner Bros. Games Montreal's upcoming Gotham Knights game, but also Rocksteady Studios' new game, which is titled Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And in this game, as the title suggests, you play as Harley Quinn, Deadshot, King Shark, and Captain Boomerang as you attempt to take out the Justice League members, such as Superman. This game honestly looks fantastic, and there's a lot of reasons that I'm very excited for it. So today there's quite a bit to unpack, but I'd like to give you guys 3 reasons that I think that you should be excited for this game as well. I have seen a lot of excitement for this game across the board, although I have seen some reservations, and those are some of the things that I'd like to address in this video. So first of all, let's talk about this open world Metropolis. Now, Rocksteady Studios is renowned for their ability to create compelling maps. In fact, that was one of the biggest praises that the original Arkham Asylum game got. Obviously, a lot of praise was also thrown at the combat, the stealth, the story, everything involved, but the map was one of those really top-tier things in that game. It still holds up really well from an aesthetic standpoint, and it just has this really creepy, eerie tone to it. With Arkham City, Rocksteady really expanded and put everything in a different setting. I think Arkham City was really instrumental in showing Rocksteady's range in regards to what they could do with these maps. Even back in that 2011 time period, everyone was talking about them doing some kind of Superman game or building some kind of Metropolis, just because they knocked Gotham out of the park so well. With Arkham Knight, once again, they expanded the map. It was much bigger, but I would argue that it didn't really lose a lot of the quality or the quantity of Easter eggs. It was still a very impressive map with a lot of depth and just so many things to see and do. And so Rocksteady has proven themselves very heavily when it comes to building compelling maps for their games. The really exciting thing about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is that this is not set in Gotham, which honestly is maybe something I would have expected, that they would have just carried it to Bloodhaven or another area in Gotham, or that they would have set it in like Belle Reve or something and made it more linear. But instead, they are giving us like full access to Metropolis. They are giving us an open world Metropolis, and this is going to be really interesting to see because it is very much a polar opposite to Gotham, which it has been portrayed as in the comics, where Gotham is very gothic, it's very dark, it's very grimy, and just this really horrible place to be, whereas Metropolis is this very respectable city where it's very bright, very pleasant. I just think it's going to be really interesting to see what Rocksteady can do here. Because once again, it's just so different from what Gotham looks like, and already we're seeing that it takes place in the day from the reveal trailer. Now, I don't know if they're going to follow the trope of the whole game taking place in one day, but either way, that is already something that we never really saw in the Arkham games, which is kind of crazy, but those games were set pretty much exclusively at night, except for like one flashback, I think. But overall, I think that this is going to be a really exciting development. I really do think that this map is going to be bigger than Gotham was, and I just think that's incredible because leading into my second reason that I think you should be excited for this game, it seems like they have expanded the gameplay from the Arkham games with these new characters. So not only will we have this really great open world Metropolis to explore, but we'll have multiple characters and various ways of exploring it. It will be interesting to see just how immersive this world is. That is one criticism that they started to garner with Arkham Knight, was that as big and cool looking as the world was, there wasn't really all that much to do in it. So it will be interesting to see if they take a page out of the GTA book where they open up a lot of activities, or if it'll be more in line with the Arkham games where you just have your main objective and then set side missions. But the gameplay here is looking to be interesting, and if you're a fan of the Arkham formula and Gotham Knights wasn't really exciting you with its RPG elements and less linear storytelling, I think that this is probably what will resonate with you just a little bit more, because it is Rocksteady, and as I'll talk about in just a moment, it really is going to follow Arkham in more ways than one, and I think that that's going to be one of them. I feel that this is going to be a very story-driven experience. This game really is going to be the gameplay successor to the Arkham games. I feel that it's going to retain a lot of the mechanics of the Arkham games, just in a new engine. It's an Unreal 4 now, and we're going to see some expansion when it comes to dual play. when it comes to the free flow, and we're also going to see a lot of mechanics in regards to shooting. And it looks like each character has a gun, so it is going to be a game that is classified as a shooter, I'm sure, but it will also retain a lot of that free flow combat. It will retain a lot of that art style and overall just the flow of gameplay. What I think is really exciting is that this isn't just for one character, and as cool as it would have been to get a Superman game, which I think we might get at some point down the line, I just really think that each of these characters is really going to shine here. We're going to see some very robust gameplay for Harley Quinn, King Shark, Deadshot, and Captain Boomerang. And already from the trailer, it looks like each of them have been given really unique and interesting abilities. And it's going to be really exciting when you realize that you can play this entire game either in single player, where you get to switch between the characters at will, and just really play as each one as you feel like it, or you can play this game as a multiplayer game up to 4 players, and that's going to be really exciting as well. Now, on my first playthrough, I'm definitely going to play through single player just so I can experience the story for myself, but then after that, you can bet that I'm going to be doing multiple playthroughs with many different friends, and I feel that that's going to add to the longevity of the game, and that's going to add so many new dynamics to the gameplay. With the Arkham games, a lot of people really mastered the Arkham combat, the Arkham stealth, and the challenge maps were a great way of doing that. But now there's going to be that added element of your friends, and you're going to want your friends to get really good at the combat too, so that you don't have to keep going over and reviving them or something. I truthfully just think that from a gameplay perspective, this is a really great next step for Rocksteady, because it will feel very familiar to the Arkham games. This isn't even like a drastic change from Batman. These characters will probably play fairly similar to Batman, especially Harley Quinn and Deadshot. With that said, there is enough new variety and a new element of being able to be lethal. Batman doesn't kill, but these characters all kill. And so there's that freedom, and there's all these new abilities that you can play around with. And I've mentioned this before, but I feel like this is a game that will not only be really great on its own, but it will also be instrumental in potentially pushing into some kind of Superman or Justice League or Flash game or whatever they want to do after this. Like I said, I think that it will not only service people who really liked the Arkham games by being a familiar jumping off point for them, but it will also just bring so many new elements to the table, like just the variety of characters this time and the multiplayer. Finally, the third reason that I think you should be excited for this game is the fact that it is a sequel to Arkham Knight. This is a continuation of the Arkham universe, and I have already seen people point out some inconsistencies. Deadshot's character model is changed. He is now African American rather than Caucasian. I personally don't feel like this is a big deal, because his last real appearance for Rocksteady was in 2011 with Arkham City, and he had about 1 minute of screen time, so he's never been a major character here, and now that he's being thrust to the forefront of this story, I really don't mind that retcon. I also think that there's a lot of retcons regarding some of the additional content that Warner Brothers pushed out for the Arkham games, and I feel that this is Rocksteady's answer to all of that. It's their answer to Assault on Arkham and the comics that they weren't really involved with, which is that they do not consider them canon. I really think that the only thing that Rocksteady did not make that they will adopt into the canon of their games is Batman Arkham Origins, because they already have done that with Arkham Knight and everything. But recently I was listening to an interview with Sefton Hill, and Greg Miller was the interviewer, and he was asking about Arkham Origins, and Sefton made it pretty clear that while they consider Arkham Origins canon, they also don't really consider it a part of their trilogy. It's like they consider it canon. The events of Arkham Origins did happen in their universe, but it isn't their game. And you got to see it from Sefton Hill's point of view. Obviously, he's worked very hard on this trilogy. He spent a decade working on it. And so then to have this other studio come in and tell a story that isn't really the way you would have told it, it's easy to see why he kind of begrudgingly accepts it. And not to say that he doesn't like Origins. I think he's pretty impressed with what Montreal was able to do. But once again, it's just not the game he would have made. And I think that as a director, if there's something that's claiming to be part of your universe that you were not really involved in, it becomes very easy to kind of just, throw it under the bus a little bit. You look at Christopher Nolan and the Dark Knight trilogy. There is an animated film called Batman Gotham Knight, and it released, I believe, between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and some of the writers from those films were involved, and they tried to push it as a film that technically takes place within the universe of Nolan's Batman. But I guarantee you Nolan does not really consider it part of his canon because he wasn't involved with it. If he'd have wanted to use Deadshot, who was in Gotham Knight in The Dark Knight Rises, for example, I can guarantee he would not have at all adhered to his presence in that animated film. And I feel like that's what Rocksteady is doing with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. They're kind of saying that they don't consider Assault on Arkham canon. They're not considering those comics that they weren't involved in canon. Those really are more merchandise than anything. They don't consider Arkham Origins Blackgate canon. So really, I think at this point, the 4 base games are what we can consider as canon, and even those are getting some subtle retcons. Because this is a new engine, it's a new generation, it's a new chapter for this franchise, I honestly am totally okay with these retcons and with them saying, okay, here's what we want to do with our franchise going forward. We're taking our trilogy and we'll acknowledge Arkham Origins, and we're really going to spearhead it into expanding this universe. And that's what's really going to be exciting to see. We're already seeing the Arkhamverse version of Superman. We're going to see the Arkhamverse version of these Justice League characters, and it's just going to be a really interesting experience. Sefton Hill also mentioned that a lot of the plot threads from Arkham Knight would carry over into this game, and already I feel that improves the experience of Arkham Knight. I think that a lot of people's criticism with Arkham Knight was that it was an inadequate conclusion to such an epic franchise, but now that we know that there is going to be a continuation where we're going to see where that plot goes, I feel that that already improves it a little bit. And Arkham Knight works better as not a conclusion, in my personal opinion. But I really do feel like this is just the beginning, because this whole game's purpose is really to take us with characters like Harley Quinn and Deadshot, who we are familiar with in these games, and allow them to introduce us to this much broader DC universe that Rocksteady wants to do. I also think it was rather smart to allow Warner Brothers Games Montreal to reboot from Rocksteady and do their own thing rather than just sitting in Rocksteady's shadow. If Gotham Knights had been set in the Arkham universe, Warner Brothers Games Montreal would have had to emulate Rocksteady's art style, gameplay, and it would have been, I just think from a creative standpoint, it would have been way less appealing than just allowing them to do their own thing. As a consumer, I also think it will be refreshing to get alternating releases from different versions of the DC universe. It won't oversaturate the Arkham universe, and it will give us sort of a different look at these characters to really spice things up. So I'm really excited for DC games going forward. I think Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is going to be a great game. I also think Gotham Knights is going to be a great game, so definitely expect more videos on both of those very soon. Thanks you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.